Morning, everybody. Looks like we have a few viewers. I'm here with Axel Johnson, the winner of the Servitor Appreciation GT. I put that in quotes because what Axel told me in chat before this interview is it didn't quite make the GT level, right?
Yeah, no, they didn't. I think there were 17, 19 people, something like that. So it was a glorified 4-round RTT.
All right. Well, hey, it is so cool to see the Grey Knights actually doing well. Like, I can't wait to break things down with you more, because I'm just so ecstatic. The Grey Knights were my first army. I started just as 9th hit, so they were not doing hot. And it's just really cool to see them doing well now. So, I just got a tour of Axel's game store. He owns basically a 40K specific gaming store. You can see some of the posters in the background there. So he is truly living the 40K nerd dream. How long have you been playing? How long have you owned your store?
So I've been playing 40K since I was in middle school. I was in 7th grade when I picked up the Battle for McCrag box set. That was the tail end of 4th edition. And I really started playing a little bit more when I got some buddies into this. At the time, seemed to me to be an obscure British tabletop war game. And then I got into competitive 40K when I got back from Fort Sill back in 2016. And since then, man, it's kind of picked up from there. And I started up the game shop last summer, actually, Next Level. So I've been doing pretty good since.
Oh, cool. So you haven't even been doing it all that long. But I mean, hey, that's awesome that you got to like jump in and grab that goal. Like
we have an awesome community of competitive players here in the Twin Cities Metro in Minnesota. Some really strong players too, between the names of James Kelling, Ben Sherwin, who does his advanced warfare stuff. I would encourage you to check him out if you haven't yet already. He's a Grey Knight player.
Advanced warfare.
Yeah.
Make a note. Awesome. So you've been playing a long time, 4th, and then obviously it sounds like you probably took a break while you were in the army.
Yeah, I took more of a break, kind of like with high school a little bit. I mean, I didn't really there wasn't a whole lot. I didn't even realize there was a competitive scene until I got back from, because I didn't go full time. I did guards
okay. Gotcha.
For Minnesota here, and it was when I got back from AIT and basic. That I discovered that, oh heck, there's a good number of people who actually play this, what I believe to be obscure British tabletop war game with a bunch of little minis running around on the table rolling dice. So it was great.
That's fantastic. I know that I've had friends for years try to get me into the actual tabletop game, and while I loved the Horus Heresy books, and I loved most of the video games, some of them real hit and miss. I didn't get into the actual tabletop game until lockdown, so January of 2020. So been a little over a year.
Yeah.
What's that?
That's what I found for a lot of people. They'll be coming on in and they'll be like, I just got into this hobby with lockdown and everything and started painting miniatures. And,
yeah, exactly.
I want to play the game.
Fantastic. All right, well, shit, let's jump right into that list. I've got it up here on my screen. I'm sure you're aware of it, being you just piloted it. First of all, I want to point out the name of it is hilarious. I'm a shameless hack who's out to win this event is the name, and you did. So I'm going to do a real brief overview of what it is. You have 2 detachments, Sword Bearers and Blades of Victory, which was in interesting choice. 2 Grandmaster Dread Knights, 3 regular Dread Knights for 5, which is beautiful. Thank you. Looks like 20 interceptors, and then you round it out with 3 squads of strike marines, right?
Yep.
So
And Drago.
And Drago. Yep, that's right. And then yep. Oh man, that's so cool. I love the Dread Knight so much. And it's awesome to see how well they've been buffed. That extra wound, the extra movement, the extra strength on all the weapons. The sword is amazing.
Any odd numbers that you'll be finding with wound compositions are amazing, because it means that 2 damage weapons suddenly lose efficiency on that end. So instead of it taking 6 2 damage attacks to kill them, now it's going to take 7.
That, and just like I've seen in my own games the bracketing, like I get brought down to 7 a lot, but I'm still on my top bracket. It's not till under that I'm actually like finally bracketed. Like, so I can take some I can take some hits round 1, no problem. And I still get like 1 turn of my top bracket, which is, you know, it feels bad to have a brand new model and then it's got 1 wound left or something, you know? Great. So, Sigil of Exigence, Empiric Amplification, Unyielding Anvil on your Warlord, Gate of Infinity. So he's your muscle. He can pop out of there if he needs to. He's giving everybody OBSEC. I guess a better question is, did you build this list with like, all right, I just want to slap as many Dread Knights in here as I legally can, or like, I guess what was your thoughts when you're like, all right, I'm gonna put together a Grey Knights list?
So, funny story. I don't actually write a whole lot of my lists, and the reason being is because if you look me up, you'll find 36 Hellions and 30 Reaver lists, and 30 Vanguard vets with Thunderhammer Storm Shield lists out there, and I'll do okay with them. But my problem is I find an efficiency that I like, and I generally go with it, something that I can play with. So I had my friend Ben Sherwin, he made this Grey Knight list, and it's a lot more balanced, and I can tell you why it all works very, very well after playing with it. And the reason being is because, so you were asking about the Grey Knight specifically, right?
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
About the Grandmaster specifically.
Well,
right?
I want to ask you about all of it, but yeah, like, you know.
So everything that gets put together, from the Sword Bearers component in particular, because of the benefits you get from the specific spell, to the Blades of Victory detachment that gives you the pre-game movement to kind of rush up the board, hit things really nicely, put that forward pressure wherever you need to so that your interceptors and strikes can kind of clean up the game. It all kind of ties in really nicely with each other. The 2 10-man interceptor blobs are kind of the things that a lot of people get confused about, I've seen, or at least heard. And
really? They're so good right now.
That's what I've been asked about, is the interceptor blobs, because they're 2 10-mans. And so the thing about them, the fun trick with them is I can either leave them in the 10-mans, and you're familiar with the Blades of Victory strat, you know, to come on in and basically hammer Wrath with them, which is really, really nice if I need to. But most of the time I don't actually do that. Most of the time what I'll be doing is I'll be combat squatting both of them so that they can be these annoying little assets going all around the table, casting Purifying Ritual, you know, getting me engaged on all fronts, screening things out, late game, putting Stormbolters in the pressure I need them to, along with obviously the Halberds, because those Halberds shred beautifully. And
they're so iconic. Like, they are Grey Knights. They're on every book cover and the whole nine. Like, no other army. Yeah, like no other army has that weapon. It's really cool.
Well, I guess Custodes got their, you know, their spears, but you know.
But I mean, like,
not quite the same.
Right? Yeah. So, so then you have your interceptors. I run a bunch of them too. Like, they're so fast. The fire and move again. Power is great for like chipping wounds or like getting a wound off of a Satan, because that's the psychic phase, right? So then you can shoot him again later. Just like so versatile and so fast. And with the full size smites now too, they're a threat to everything on the board. Like you don't need to have psi cannons when you can just smite a tank, you know?
Yeah, usually, depending on the tank, I probably am not going to be smiting it. I'm
Sure.
probably going to be, because that's the thing. Like, I'll probably going to be shooting it.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that I think a lot of people get confused about with Grey Knights when they look at them, especially like when I'll walk up to a table with my list, they'll be like, "Oh, so you're going to be smiting me 1 billion times and doing 1 billion mortal wounds in the psychic phase. Good thing I've got 1 billion denies or whatever." And it's like, no, man. I mean, if you want to think that, that's fine. But I'm honestly here to shoot and punch you is the big thing. The spells are all there to. People get confused about that with Grey Knights. The spells are all there to support and make them do their shooting and punching a lot better a lot of the times. Or for me to cast Purifying Ritual a bunch of times and pretty much auto score 15 points in games, where my opponent is probably going to be auto scoring 15 points on Abhor the Witch.
Yeah.
Which kind of balances it out really nicely on the scorecard.
We can get into that later. I hate Abhor. It's pretty lazy design that really thrashes 2 armies in the game and nobody uses against anybody else. But if they
I honestly think it's fine.
Really, if they change it to like psychic characters, I think it might be better. But
so my thing on Abhor is it. Like the reason I'm okay with Abhor is because I'm okay with Purifying Ritual.
But
so,
right, which we just
that,
got.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. Like, so some people, I it's funny because whenever I looked at Purifying Ritual at first, I was like, this is the most broken secondary in the game.
It's so good.
With maybe the exception of Death on the Wind because of a grammatical error in that text.
And that's
but
White Scars. Or is that
that's,
Dark Angels? Okay.
That's the Ravenwing secondary for them.
Okay, gotcha.
And it's an amazing secondary. If you haven't looked into it, I would encourage you to. 2 points for charging. But Purifying Ritual is so easy to get off in certain matchups, especially when they don't have access to denies. And I mean that's like the only real tough matchup you're going to have with that, I guess, is Sisters if they pick the oath, the sacred right to deny the witch on 4-ups, but they don't have psychers, so they're going to be double dipping on getting Abhor and then also being a huge preventative from taking Purifying Ritual.
They really are our like they really seem to be the Grey Knight counter, if you will, or one of our toughest matchups for sure.
I don't know about Sisters so much just because we got so many Stormbolters and those halberds at strength 6 for neg 2 for 2. Obviously the for 2 doesn't matter that much. It's such a perfect profile to shred. That's why in my list, because our meta is so saturated with Drukhari and Admech right now.
I believe it.
Those are the top. Those are the top armies right now because of the Charodon supplements and Drukhari having access to almost every mechanic presently in the game. They're really strong.
Absolutely.
And Grey Knights are really good at killing them. Because again, strength 6 means I'm wounding you on 2s. AP neg 2 pushes Admech a little bit further into that, especially the Lucius or the Mars with the Vanguard cohort component. And then the 2 damage too for Lucius just wrecks that extra bit that they would be normally getting. So so they're really good into those profiles. The one profile I'm actually kind of scared of right now, at least I think I might be, and that's just because I haven't played against it yet, is the new Orc shooting list, actually.
With all the, the buggies and the tank and the trucks.
Just bleeding shots out at me, just tidal wave of them. I don't know how I'll do with that, but I haven't played against it. I haven't really seen it in my shop too much.
Right.
So I've got a couple buddies who play that list, and I'll be hopefully trying it out sometime this early next week.
Well, let's jump back into that in a moment. We have a question from Joe Anton. He's saying why the halberds over the swords, and this is a debate we've had numerous times over in the Grey Knight Discord and here on this very channel we have spoken about, but so I think you just talked a bit about it with Sisters, Admech, and Drukhari all being toughness 3, being some of the best armies in the game right now. The halberds let you wound them on 2s and not 3s.
Yep. So the meta is the biggest component of it. Also, too, that extra bit means that whenever you're dealing with T5, you get a nice edge onto them. So, like, say you're playing against like Death Guard or Custodes, it's always nice to have, you know, the ability to wound them on 3s. Obviously, if there's empiric amplification and the shooting didn't kill them, then you can go into melee too, and you know that's always really nice because that is a nemesis weapon.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's something. And then another thing on it too is just like I said, it's the meta. But when you think about the profiles real quickly, those halberds are the exact same as the Dread Knight swords with the slash attacks. But you get more of them.
Yeah, that's true. You're still at strength 6,
-2
2 damage. 2. Yeah, you're right.
It's the same thing, but you get way more attacks. So people, that's the thing too. People get really, really scared of the baby carriers, and the baby carriers, what they do is they mess stuff up, and they're kind of hard to kill because they're really swingy between a 4-up invul and obviously against AP and, you know, Melta or high damage equivalent shots like, you know, Dark Lances and Blasters and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
From the Drukhari side of thing, or the Admech chicken with the Cognis Lass. But like their shooting is amazing, but they in melee don't hit as hard as your basic strike squad, especially if it's got Hammerhand and Drago rerolls on them.
Yeah,
which
I know.
Is hilarious.
So
to me.
Good. So good now.
And that's because of the halberds. Now the swords are still good too. I really like the swords, but like, I mean, would you rather have a point of strength or a pip of AP? And it's like, I'll take the point of strength most days because there's a lot of invulns in the game right now in order to compensate for the amount of AP that's just everywhere in this game.
Yeah. You're preaching to the choir, man. I love the halberds. The swords, I mean, there is math out on this. You can find it in the Grey Knight Discord as well, but effectively the swords are very good against Marine equivalent, which is, you know, 20% of the meta or whatever, 24%. But other than that, I think the halberds do edge them out in every way, except against 3-up armor, toughness 4.
Well, here's my thing. If you're playing as Grey Knights against Marines, with the exception of maybe against Dark Angels, and you're losing to Marines, you're kind of in a rough spot there, buddy. Marines just aren't in a great position right now, unfortunately, and I would not be expecting them to be the primary contenders to win an event. So, like you got to figure something out if you're losing against, you know, if you're losing to Ultramarines with Grey Knights. So,
what about gosh, aren't there like canicles that
although that being said, the Dreadnought list or the Dreadnought list is pretty scary to my list. So
like
I'll say
Death
that
Watch,
much. The Death Watch or Ultramarine Dreadnought list and Dreadnought list, and that's just because those profiles just edge over on toughness over the strength. So I'm forced to be using my big swing attacks instead of my slash attacks. Yeah. But I think that the shooting overwhelms it. That's the big thing.
So, that's a great point. There's a lot that goes into the decision about what close combat weapon you're going to use, and a ton of it has to do with your local meta. So, like, if you do have a lot of Sisters in Drukhari and Admech, as we're seeing on top tournament tables right now, then you should probably be looking hard at those halberds. If there is a big psychic awakening for Space Marines and they are back on the upswing, then you might want to look at swords, right? But you always get style points for bringing halberds every time.
Yeah, they are beautiful.
Yeah,
I actually love the swords. I'm building all of my purifiers right now with the long swords just because they look cool.
Yeah.
So
it's like, it's not like it's a bad choice one way or the other. It's just one is particularly well suited against a certain type of enemy while the other is not. But I mean, obviously, good play in the movement phase and stuff, and like even lucky rolls are gonna win you a game probably over what close combat weapon you brought.
I mean, yeah. I still think that, and I would push a hard debate to still say that, even if Marines were top dog right now, I would still be rooting for the Halberds, just because it still gives you a better diversity of opponents that you can go into. Because T3 is a little popular right now, from what I'm seeing, between Sisters, Admech, Drukhari, playing really nicely. And even if that was still T4 Marines, well, guess what? They get a 5-up save now instead of a 6-up save. Big whoop. You know what I mean? Like,
So
that
it's
matters,
twice as good.
Yeah, it is twice as good. You're 100% right. But I mean, hey, here's 16 attacks coming at you, and I'm rerolling at least ones to hit most of the time, and if not one, fold the wound with hammer hand. So it's like, can you eat all this? Each one that goes through is going to kill a boy. So.
Clown Mode asks if you're scared of John Lennon's Ultramarine list, and just so that I'm clear on this, that's the one with all the incursors and the Invictus war suit, so you got a lot of forward deployment, and then Ultramarines get to their 2 CP redeploy strat, and then they've got a bunch of Redemptors, if I'm remembering the list right.
Yep. So it's Redemptors, couple Contemptors with Volkites are the usual suspects to see in that style of list that I've seen. I've played against Ryan Olsen with that list. There's a lot of access to a lot of flat 2 damage in those lists. The Invictors are really stinking good too. Don't be mistaken by the fact that they lost core that they're not good. They're still really good. It is a scary list. The Invictors are T6 though, so that's kind of nice when you're considering this army going into that list. Yeah, for sure. But honestly, the shooting is that's kind of what I was saying earlier. Like I think that list, that Ultramarine list, that Dreadnoughts is a little scary, but I think that the shooting could play it out. I honestly need to get a couple practice games against that style list, but with the Death Watch version and the Ultramarine version, because I think that'll give me a much better examination on how that would perform in a tournament too, and what I need to do to win that game. But it can be a scary list just because you're playing with T7 profiles when most of your army is at around strength 6. So empiric amplification helps, obviously, and so does empiric lodestone. So man, we have some really cool tricks now. Love all these buffs and debuffs, the maledictions and the blessings. They're a lot of fun now. Looks like we have the Real Dead Rock says Axel is love, Axel is life. I assume you know who that is. Yeah. Thanks, JC. He's like, yeah, it's true. I am. Gamer Gavin asks, what are some of the pitfalls for new competitive players that they should avoid? That's a big question. I think one of the first ones is you got to figure out where you're playing and who you're playing. And what I mean by that is newer competitive players need to be figuring out, they need to prioritize getting themselves out to RTTs where they're actually playing competitive games. I think one of the things with newer competitive players is they think that they can play just about anyone and improve over time. And the reality is that you're not getting the same value in your games if you're constantly playing casual games or narrative games compared to playing narrative games. Now, don't get me wrong, playing casual games and narrative games is great because, if you're a newer player, period, you're going to be manifesting the heuristics of understanding your stat blocks and understanding, how to roll dice and move things around, because those are the things that you need to learn how to play. But if you're new to competitive and you want to go, all right, what are the tactics I need to employ, or what can I expect from my opponent, or what are good plays, or what's out in the meta, prioritizing who and where you're getting games, I think is really big. And making sure that you get it there, because there's a lot of times where I'll see a lot of competitive players where they just won't get their games in, and that's the biggest thing is you need to be playing. You need to try to get at least 3 games in a week. Honestly, if you can get a game in a day, that's perfect.
Damn. So you're gonna lean on what? TTS at that point? Or I mean, not all of us own game stores and have every army other than Guard and Death Guard.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you can, there's a lot of game shops that'll have tables. A lot of people in the pandemic have set up tables at home. You know,
Bingo.
the reason I offer a lot of tables in good terrain is because I want people to come in and get games in.
Gotcha.
And I think that's really important. I think you lose a lot of the value from a real game when you play on TTS as opposed to in person. You lose the sociability element of it,
but,
which is super important because we spend all this time building and painting these models, and we spend all this time looking into the lore of the game. We spend all this time researching how we want things to go down, and now you're in front of a buddy, and you're hanging out and you're playing a game.
Yeah, that's like that is half of the reason I play the game is the actual human interaction with another person, for sure.
100%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. But for the mechanics, like understanding your list, like getting in as many reps as possible, like putting your list and your skill against many different army types. Like I have 5 or 6 friends that I play with very regularly, but amongst them, I've never seen Imperial Knights. I've only seen Guard once, and I've never played them. Nobody in my group has demons. So there are whole swaths of types of armies that I won't be able to actually see if I don't branch out, into other types of play. And right now, unfortunately, none of my local game stores, other than one about an hour away, is really doing any in-person stuff just yet. Like a whole lot of them even reconfigured their entire store to use up that space that they had saved for tables because of COVID.
What I would do if I were you is try to make deals with some of these game store owners that are willing to, or find a space or something. And that's how I started getting into the competitive scene. Was I started TOing RTTs.
Nice.
And that let me meet a lot of the other players that would soon become teachers and mentors to me, and get me going on to playing competitive by participating and by saying, all right, I'm going to start this up and I'm going to start getting people to play the game in tournaments. I started finding all those people that wanted to play competitive, and we all started improving each other. And before you know it, you're playing constantly, and you're playing against all kinds of different people before you know it. And really good players, really not so good players who are learning how to get better because they want to get better. And you're in that category when you just start off, because it's a hard game. It's not a simple game.
No, I mean, that's one of the other reasons that I like it, is it's so damn complicated.
yeah. It's really rewarding in that sense, where it's you spend all this time, and it's still, you find out that there's still a lot more to learn. You're never quite the smartest person in the room, which is phenomenal.
Not to get too far off of what we're talking about, but did you hand out pom-poms to all your friends before this stream? Because it looks like you got a few folks who really know you down in all the comments.
I embarrassingly posted it, the link to the YouTube thing in my Discord server. So. Oh,
beautiful, beautiful. So yeah, you got the Real Dead Rock is saying that you can purify their flame. Apparently you don't have orcs either, so you've been totally called out on that.
I can show them to you right now. I can show those people orcs.
Oh, Gavin.
I've got a bunch of orcs.
Nice. Is it the vehicle list though, with all the buggies and stuff?
There's a lot of boys, storm boys and stuff. My brother Ethan put that list together. So.
And then a legit question now. So Joe is asking, in general, what warp tides are you using and in what order? And obviously that will completely change based on the map and the matchup and who went first and all that. But in general, what are you thinking for your order of operations through the tides?
So it's actually super simple. Am I playing against demons? Yes. I don't care. I'm still not using the demon tide. Did I go first? All right, I'm in Tide of Convergence. Did I go second? All right, I'm in Tide of Shadows until Drago warp shapes into Tide of Convergence on my next turn so that I get better shooting and better melee. And then I pretty much float in Tide of Convergence for the rest of the game. And that's as simple as it gets.
Yeah.
All the other tides just kind of aren't worth it compared to those two.
Yeah, and I guess part of that too is if you look at your list with the Blades of Victory power, you don't really need the Tide of Celerity because you get those charge rerolls, so you're not really looking. I mean, if you switch to the Tide, you've got like mega redundancy there.
Celerity is really great when you're,
for long bomb
coming out of Deep Strike.
Yeah.
When you've got your whole army that's just or your half your army obviously that's coming out of Deep Strike and something that's teleporting and shafting up and something that's gating up the table and then like everything's coming in out of 9 inches. Tide of Celerity is perfect for that. How many times do I do that? Never.
Yeah.
You would really need to build a list. I feel like that's just designed for Tide of Celerity, and I don't know if that's reliable. I don't know if that's dependable. Like it's good for those 9-inch charges, but it's like would I rather guarantee my charges or would I rather be doing 6s to wound, do additional mortal wounds, you know, like in the fight phase? Like, I mean, come on, you know, like
the amount of mortal wounds we can throw out is absurd now, and I love it. Absolutely love it.
It really is. It's memeable.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess that's kind of the way I do it too. Sometimes if I go first and I know that like they're really really fast, and I'll play kind of dodgy, I'll go to Shadows first.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because I know I'm gonna get off a few pot shots, you know, chip a wound here or there. But if it's like White Scars, I want them to come to me, and that way I can, you know, explode forward on turn 2 and punch them right in the mouth.
Yeah.
I
mean, you could still always just gate something up there and then be like, start shooting at him and try to force him to peel him out into the open. But
so going back to your list here, because I think we've answered the questions that were in chat. Clown Mode asks, how much did Ben Sherwin's RTT winning list influence yours? And unfortunately, I'm not familiar with that RTT or that list, so I'm hoping you are and make me look
100%.
smart. Fantastic.
It's basically the same list. His list has changed now. He's been so the changes he's made to his list, and I didn't employ them obviously, was he did the double tech marine, which I think is really good because then it just, I mean, it's giving drugs to your baby carriers, and then they just go, oh, I hit on 2s. Oh, I've been bracketed. All right, here's D3 wounds back, and now I'm hitting you better, and you know it's harder for me to kill. You know, it's harder to kill them. Like the tech marines are really good, and then he also switched out the Blades of Victory baby carrier, the one that's in that detachment, and he switched it from having the sword to having the hammer, so that he has an answer for like those a bit more consistent answer for like things like those dreadnoughts or knights or other T8 equivalents.
Is that on the normal Dread Knight or is that on a Grandmaster?
That's on a normal one.
Oh man, so hitting on 4s.
I don't think there's a negative one to hit with that hammer, is there?
I thought there was. I mean,
with
now
that one in particular, if there is.
Well, now you're making me think twice.
Oh, there is.
Yeah.
Maybe it's on. You might have put it on the Grandmaster, and I might be mistaken. I've seen it, but
Also, 4s with reroll everything because a regular
Drago.
Dread Knight is a core unit is pretty legit too. So
yeah,
you don't need a whole lot of those to get through to smash something good.
Yeah, I don't know. Now I still really like the sword even more now. So
yeah,
I don't know.
It's not like the sword was bad.
Yeah, no.
It's amazing.
Oh, boohoo, you know.
Other than the D6 damage, I will never advocate for D6 damage. Like even 2D3 damage would be better. IMO.
So my last game at last weekend's event was against Jeremiah Pettit, who is a phenomenal player, by the way. He's a really good player. And that game could have swung either way, honestly, at a number of different points in that game. Like, that was a tight game. I think the score ended up being like 84 to 81 or something like that. It was really tight. And there were a couple swings. Like, the last turn, he rolled snake eyes on a charge that, probably would have got him, And at one point, too, I was going into a Telemon. It had been empirically amplified. I had a Dread Knight coming in. It had Drago rerolls. It had Hammer Hand. It was coming on in, to say hello. And then he pulls the Custode strat for no rerolls.
No rerolls, yeah.
And I'm like, yep, okay, great. I rolled a hit, rolled a wound. I had 2 wounds that went through his invuln. And then I roll the damage, and it's double ones. And I'm just...
Yep. D6 damage is rough, man.
Yeah.
Peasy is asking where we can find Ben Sherwin's double Tech Marine list. I'm not sure. What was the name of that RTT, so at least I can look it up on...
He hasn't taken that list to an RTT yet. I don't know if he's actually taken that list to a tournament yet. It's a really similar list. It's basically the same list that I'm running. It's just his update on what he believes is better. And I do actually really like the Tech Marines, and I think they might. I'm pretty sure they're still better, but I just like Drago more because he comes in super clutch so often. I mean, that dude can really shred on his own.
Yeah, he's a total beat stick.
Yeah.
I mean, 3-up invul, like that sword, -4, base 3 damage, like, come on.
Access to Chapter Master is super great, and then, it's just, there's so many reasons why he's awesome,
So there you go, Peasy. We don't know. Well, I'll try to find it after this, and I'll post it in the description down below. So we already talked about a little bit about secondaries, so I agree with you. Cleansing Ritual is insanely good. The fact that you don't have to control it, that enemies can be on it, and then you can tow in and get 6 points is pretty silly. And with the interceptors, you can pretty much, they can move through terrain, they ignore vertical movement, they ignore other models. So if you really need to get those points off, you can shove them up there, tow in, cast, bam, and you can just farm. And the amount you can get is so high that, again, if you're playing KG turn 1 on a 6 objective map, you move up, grab 3, you can get 4 points, and then you don't have to cast it again till like turn 3 or 4.
Well,
if you
nice
don't need to.
And the real nice part about it too is that it is a psychic action, which means, 1, you still get to move, you still get to advance, you still get to shoot, you still get to charge, you get to do all that stuff. And you just can't cast any other psychic powers. And what it also means is that, unlike regular actions, which are generally conducted in the movement phase, aside from getting to do all the other cool stuff you get to do now, the real nice part about it is that, you don't have to rely on like teleport shaft or something like that to get you into a corner like you would with Rod, or to get you somewhere else, like with banners or whatever. Like, you don't have to use teleport shaft in order to set up, you'd have to use teleport shaft in order to set up a banner or to Rod.
Shunt, right?
But you can't use Gate of Infinity in order to do that, because that's in the psychic phase. But with Purifying Ritual, I can gate something and it can be over there, and now it can purify. You know what I mean? So if I'm playing like a 6 objective mission and it's, it's tight, maybe I needed my psychic powers for other stuff, and I need to get, 2-3 more objectives more, and it's hard to reach, or I don't know. But like, I could do that, So unlike the other actions, the movement actions that are described in the core rules. Yeah.
I mean, you're giving up a power, but for the most part, your interceptors are going to be smiting if they're using a power at all. I mean, the shoot move is very good, but it's not clutch like Hammer Hand, right?
I mean,
Where you want Hammer Hand off all the time.
I'm sacrificing 12 powers over the course of the game to get 15 points. I think it's worth it. Totally
agree. Mark Kengan, sorry, is asking, is there a reason why you didn't take the 3 dreads in a spearhead? Because that would, then you wouldn't need to take the extra strike squad, or you can move the extra strike squad into your blades victory detachment instead.
I actually really like the strike squad with the sword bearers, because the nice thing is too is then the other 2 baby carriers can cast their hammer hands because it's a sanctic power, and then the Brotherhood power can go off on that strike squad if I need them to, so that they can be doing the grunt work of casting that spell while the other ones do their other stuff, or maybe they need to purify because of positioning or something like that.
Okay.
And then I also have something like a small screen with the strikes that can also work. Like if I'm playing a game where I need my shooting and that's more important than my melee, then my strikes can be in front of them in a circumstance like that.
No, that's a great point. So that strike marine is your empiric lodestone like monkey, basically.
Backup.
Yeah, it's out there.
It's an option that I have, and I like having it. And they also benefit from that Grandmaster as well, his rerolls, because that strike squad isn't going to benefit from the other one. It's only going to benefit from him, right? Because like that's the Brotherhood detachment things. So, and that's one of the reasons why, like, when I'm tweaking my list right now and kind of looking at it, it's kind of hard because I really like it, and it's kind of hard to mess up, like the fact I don't want to mess up the way that my Brotherhood rerolls operate. And I really like having access to having just one strike squad that's going to get reroll once to hit from that Brotherhood, and then also having access to that Brotherhood power, because it means my other stuff gets to cast its other stuff.
So that's really cool to have the redundancy built into the list. I think I do what Mark was asking here, and I kind of like overly worry about how amazingly efficient every line in a list might be, and I'll miss something very simple just like that, where it's like, also, I want to
I had a secret for you.
Yeah.
Spearhead doesn't refund CP on Warlords.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Oh.
Outriders, Spearheads, none of those actually refund any CP. So.
But yeah, you were saying you overanalyze every line and then you miss something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's an amazing point. Of course, you can just use them to cast Empiric Lodestone. They are there as, a linchpin, a backup, so that the Dread Knights you did bring, all 4 of them, in that detachment get their +1 to wound, which is super clutch. Huh?
It's 3 of them. There's 3 in that detachment.
Oh, there's 3. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, because there's Grandmaster and then the 2
right.
ones. That's why he's arguing for the Spearhead, so that there could be 3. And
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's still that is pew pew pew, like So like you said, Convergence brings all those Nemesis psi all the psi weapons on all of the Dread Knights up to 30-inch range, which has been a pain point of mine when I was playing the 8th edition Grey Knights. Is all of our shooting was 24 inches, which is not that far, other than like las cannons, right? So then you get up to 30 inches, you've now got +1 to wound on 75% of your Dread Knights. You then put in Empiric amplification on there, so everything's doing more damage. Like, what is not to love about that wombo combo, right? Like, you'll delete something.
Yeah. Oh no, that's the thing. It's super killy. And that's the fun part too, is because like my other Grandmaster, who's in the Blades of Victory detachment, can still cast Empiric. Well, you know what I mean? Like, so there's a lot of synergy that you can play across it, And the fun part is too with, the only thing I've really been thinking about with a big change would be to move over the Unyielding Anvil from my Sword Bearers one over to my Blades of Victory one, because my Blades of Victory one is much bigger when it comes to, it's got twice as many strikes, it's got all the more interceptors, which means that even though it's got the pregame push, which means he's volatile to dying, that pregame push with having the OBSEC I think is kind of nice. for him, although he does end up dying pretty often, so maybe I'll just leave it there. So that's kind of the thing. I debate all these things, and then I kind of go back to the original. I'm like, oh well, that just makes sense, you know. So
yeah, let's talk about that for a moment. So I see you didn't take Foretelling of Locus, which is the 3 core unit redeploy, which I have found to be super fun and super awesome. But you did take what? So then you did spend 1 CP for the Blades of Victory Warlord trait, Vanguard Aggression, which allows you after deployment and before turn 1 to do a 6-inch movement up to on 1 core unit near that warlord. Is that 6-inch movement worth 1 CP for you? Like, well, what are you doing with that 6 inches on 1 unit?
So you're either, well, it's not just 1 unit, it's also himself as well.
Oh yeah, it is. Look at that. So I can read, I promise.
No, you're good. So you can take the one. You actually almost gave me a mini heart attack. I'm like, I didn't cheat, did I? I've thought I read that right 3 times. So.
No, you got it.
But yeah, you get to move himself and then another one up. So like that one Dread Knight that's in his detachment could move up with him if I go first. I could use it to kind of move away at a target so that only my Sigil of Exigence one from my Sword Bearers one is the only one active for them to shoot at.
And that way you're baiting it.
Teleport. Yeah, exactly.
You're baiting it.
Or
Love it.
What I can do is in certain matchups, like against Drukhari, you know, let's say he's got all of his 5 raiders like hidden behind like a big owl that's blocking line of sight. I just forward move one of the 5-man interceptor blocks, and then they launch out 18 inches, and then they cast their Brotherhood power for the reroll charges, and then they come on in, and now they're tying up all 5 boats. You know what I mean? On turn 1.
That's actually hilarious. Yeah. So you're like piling into every single raider, basically.
Yeah. Like that seems pretty good to me. Yeah. I don't know. Like, so now he can't turn 1 shoot or anything like that, and it's all just kind of stuck there, and I'm just moving up and waiting for him to pop out and go, I got guns.
I mean, they can shoot, I guess, if they want to shoot into melee against some interceptors. That's value, man. That's value, yeah. I'll trade 5 interceptors to keep, 2 Dread Knights up for turn 1.
Yeah, because those Dark Lances will hurt.
They're so efficient. Oh, man. Like, I know they're only heavy 1, but they're re-rolling their hit from one of the cult upgrades that I can't remember now. And then, yeah, and then, oh, man, like, it's D3 plus 3. Like, woo, if it gets through your invul. You got the
Trueborn, and if, there's always like the debate here is between Obsidian Rose and Blackheart, and I've seen Poison Tongue Heart debate, but I actually prefer Blackheart, so because that real one is great. But then also the power from Pain right off the bat. Being able to have Incubi advance and charge, turn 1, especially against something that's moving forward up against you, is kind of cute. But enough Drukhari, since we're here to talk about Grey Knights.
All right. Well, speaking of which, let's jump into your round 1 match, which was a mirror match. So, how did it feel having 2 Dragos on the field at the same time?
I think we did make a joke about that at one point.
Like that Spider-Man meme, yeah.
Yeah. It was fun. Mark is old man Mark. He's actually a really, really good player. He's a warhog out from North Dakota, and he's great. He used to kick my butt with Grey Knights back in 8th edition before they had their Psychic Awakening. I was playing
so Marines, when they were the worst army in the game?
When Marines were amazing, and he kicked my butt in with Grey Knights at the time. So he's kind of a good player. And so it was kind of cute. And, he was getting a little upset about, my baby carriers, because he didn't like them very much. He liked his Terminators. And I liked the Terminators too, but I like the baby carriers since I liked them when I was in, when they came out and I was in high school.
Because this is a Grey Knight stream, I would like to pick apart this, well, not pick apart, but go into more detail about this list as well. So it looks like they brought the Psychic epitome wombo combo
The
librarian.
super Libby, yeah.
Grandmaster and a Nemesis Dread Knight done up the way I like it. Well, I guess he took Demon Slaver for the extra attack, and then Hammer of Righteousness. He's got lots of strike squads. Ah, I see. So he brought Paladins. Looks like a whole 10-man brick. Woo, woo, that's expensive. And then Purifiers and 2 Purgation squads. Wow. All right. So yeah, how did this game go? Because this is a very non-meta style list, especially with the Paladins. Wow, they are expensive.
So as you can imagine, considering how Grey Knights get +1 to deny, I did not pick Purifying Ritual this game for a secondary. So I think I picked Banners because it was a 6 objective mission with Dawn of War deployment. I don't remember.
Do you remember which mission
Banners
it was?
By Engage. Sorry.
Do you remember which mission it was? I've got the.
It was a 6 objective mission. No, not exactly. It was. I picked Banners. I picked Engage. It was a hold 2, hold 3 mission. I can't remember which one. It'd be listed probably somewhere on BCP maybe.
Scorched Earth meets. Nope, it's not hold 2.
No, Scorched Earth is hold 1, hold 2.
Yeah.
It's a hold 2, hold 3. I can't remember.
Okay.
But that was how I beat him, was because I kept peeling him off of primary with the shooting. So basically, I went first. There were 2 of the, like these kinds of buildings, the obscuring with the windows in them. I walked up my baby carriers, touched up to a bunch, had kind of curl one flank, go with the other with half of them, forced him to use his whoop turn 1, like his Sigil of Exigence, burn that. He moved it up. I still kept shooting at him. He got down to like 1 or 2 wounds left. Or no, he got down to 4 wounds left, or 4 or 5 wounds left actually, because I remember because it was Overwatch where I ended up finally getting the bracket because he was coming at me at one of them, Grandmaster.
Did he pop the 3-up invul?
No, he didn't
upgrade
pop up
to. Oh,
Throne.
okay,
Nope.
okay.
Nope. Because so I'll get into that in a minute.
Sure.
That part of the list. That's actually a really tricky part of the list. But with either of them. But so I forced him to burn it, and then he came up to me, and then he ended up effectively dying by the end of turn 1 because it was on his bottom of his turn 1 that he just said, "I'm going to trade a Grandmaster for a Grandmaster," and I was like, "That's a fine trade for me, considering how I've got another one over here."
Yeah, I've got 2.
Yeah, exactly. And I just kept peeling away off of objectives. He kept trying to come on in. The super librarian ended up doing a grand total of
7, because that's
1 mortal wound.
How?
When he came on in.
After your saves.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I spent for hexagrammic wards. I denied him on stuff. He only had 2 CP when he came on down because he was spending CP to try to be really try to endure my shooting.
Yeah. Okay.
Across that game, and he came on down and just because you honestly, my problem with him is I played a game already with him. I've tried him out. I've played a game with the Terminators, with the Paladins. I've played games trying out with the other stuff recently after this last weekend.
Yeah.
And I don't actually like the librarian that much because he sucks up so much CP, and then he's not really super useful at that point throughout the game.
If you're bringing him,
something else would be.
Yeah, if you're gonna bring him,
Infinity.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. Or if you stick him in Deep Strike, then he's not there. Turn 1, he's gonna drop. He's gonna drop down, and then he's out in the wind. So you're giving up 100 and what? 20-point model or 115 if you buy the gem. It's I think he's like 115
and is necessary for the +2. You need that. So here's the thing though, he's outside. You have to put him in Deep Strike. That's how he plays. But he pops down. He is nice because he can open up boats and stuff in the psychic phase. So if you're playing against Harlequins or Drukhari or stuff like that, he can hit something really hard. He can hurt an Imperial Knight super badly. T8 equivalents that you would have issues with. But if you have an Imperial Knight, that should be the least of your concerns is using your Libby, if you're playing against them. But my problem with it is he drops out to 9 inches. So Purifying Flame is a 9-inch cast, which means you have to spend the extend 6-inch range.
Yep.
So you're spending that one already. You're spending for the 3d6 cast, drop the lowest.
Yep.
And then you need to spend another one so that you can get the third pyro off, which is Smite, because even though it's not a Witchfire, you still want to
Yeah,
have that third power off to
of
benefit
course.
off him burning the Gem of Intoku, as well as, you know, the 3d6 casts, you know, like all of that stuff. So, and then he
Yeah,
obviously takes Psychic Epitome too for the bonus to the Witchfire. That's why.
yeah,
But
yeah. Plus one mortal wound to the Purifying Flame and
Vortex.
the Vortex of Doom. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I think it's fun. I mean, it's
it
gotta
is.
it's gotta feel super good when you get off like 17 mortal wounds or whatever. But otherwise, yeah, like you're spending at least 1 CP for just in your list building. You're spending 15 points for the gem, or is it 20 points for the gem? I don't remember now. Anyway, you're buying the gem, and then, like you said, you're guaranteeing that at least 4 of your CP are going into him dropping down in the first place. Or 3,
And
I
Grey Knights
guess.
need their CP.
And then maybe a 4th if you really feel bad, where, like, oh, my smite was only 1 damage, or my Purifying Flame was only 4 damage, or you know, 1. Oh, well, it's 3, and then it's D3
Yeah,
plus
that'll
3.
be
So
4, min
yeah.
4 for Purifying Flame.
yeah, so I mean, yeah, you're already. Yeah, I'd rather, like, I think saving 2 of those CP for a clutch interrupt later is probably gonna do you more at the end of the day.
Or fight on death with
yeah.
one of the, you know, yeah, like there's so much that they have. I mean, True Silver Armor is great. I actually don't use it that much because
It's so
2
expensive.
CP.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
like
expensive for us.
and it used to be that way too. And like that's how Transhuman used to be when it first came out. It's 2 CP and you can do it anywhere you want.
Yeah.
You know, and
But it didn't get
you know,
bigger with bigger units, right?
Yep, and that's where it hurts. But I mean, like, I don't really, I never really do that. So, and that's kind of my problem with the Paladin Bomb too, is that most of the time when you're True Silver Armoring them, it's going to be costing you 3 CP, and you need Sanctuary to go off, or you need to be riding with the Rod, and the Rod, you spend the CP, you know, in order to give them the plus to their invuln, so they got a 4 up, you know, like, and then you got to True Silver them, and it's just they're such a pain to try to keep alive. But you know, they can be pretty durable, the Paladins, and they can hit like a truck too. I'm not saying that they're like, you know, a lost cause, but they're just right now they're just not nearly as good as the baby carriers, in my opinion.
Yeah. Before we keep digging into this game, Joshua Newberry is asking, how did you? So you played your Dread Knights not as a backline gun line, right? But like you were going up with them, and you were utilizing their excellent shooting, but then you weren't afraid to like charge with them, obviously, right?
I mean, it depends on the matchup, but most of the time, yeah, that's basically how the game goes. Is they move, they move, they shoot, they punch.
Yeah.
You know.
Gotcha. So, there you go, Josh. They don't sit in the back like relic contemptors. They go forward and they punch along with the rest of the army.
It's not a gunline army. If you wanted to, you could play around with like Storm Ravens. I've been actually looking at.
I have one. I've played one.
The Sword Bearers one, you can do some pretty cool stuff with it. It's kind of expensive, but it's also kind of silly and kind of cute.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I did a stream, live stream with one after the Codex dropped, and it was annoying. It stayed alive at 1 damage and just like got me engaged and missed a whole bunch of shots and was basically a 310 point distraction with an invul.
Yeah.
So it was, I mean, definitely wouldn't want to take more than one. All right, so he put Saya cannons into each one of these squads as well, and then he's got the massive amount of Saya cannons on the Paladin squad as well, and then he's got 2 in with his purifiers, so he was, and then 4 on one of the purgation squads, so that's a withering amount of high strength fire power that's also buffed if he's in Tide of Convergence. So did you just deal with that by rushing up the board and getting into combat as soon as you could, or I mean, wow, that's a lot of shooting.
I mean, yeah, it's mostly like, again, it's I move, I shoot, it really is kind of almost that way. You know, me going first hurt him quite a bit on that game, because that basically made his Servant of the Throne whoop go away really quickly, and then he's trying to recover by scoring points by moving these things and being forced to, because he picked Rod that game. Retrieve Octarius data.
Yeah, which is probably what his servitors were for.
Yeah, but like it's kind of sucks, because then you've got to commit, you know, a strike squad or a purgation squad or something. Like, instead of, you know, shooting, it's gonna have to do some of these things. And, you know, he comes into my back line, and I've still got plenty of interceptors and strikes left, and then it's just like, I deal with you here, you know, pretty easily, because again, everything's 2 damage with the halberds, and, you know, the shooting's also okay, but I mean, it's really honestly the melee that does it in for them in that instance. Like, they're just, and then the big gun too, like the Psy Cannon on the Dread Knights, each of them are 2 damage, you know, strength 8, 2 damage. I'm wounding you on 2s, you know, and then it's flat 2 apiece, you know, with 6 shots, you know, and I'm probably going to be hitting on 2s or 3s, maybe 4s, you know, if there's some degradation going on. But I've probably got rerolls between Drago or the Grandmasters, and it's just it hurts, you know. Yeah. And if I vertically amplify, I can just put a Gatling into you instead and watch you go bye-bye. The
Grandmaster Dread Knight base is so big that their reroll 1 aura is like surprisingly large.
It's really large. And that's where you're not spending the CP to extend it by 3 inches.
Yeah. If you want, yeah, you can. Or I mean, there's even a Warlord trait to do that, or is it a Warlord trait, or is it?
I'm not sure about that. Maybe there is. I'm
is
not
it
sure.
one of the?
It might be a relic, not a Warlord trait. I don't think so.
Yeah, it might be one of the Wisdom upgrades. I can't recall right now, but
I know they got a strat to extend ranges.
I also see that there is his Interceptor squad. He took Endowment in Extremis and then brought the Stave of Supremacy, and the Stave makes it so it's like harder to cast, I think. Or if you cast, you automatically perils too.
It's
or
doubles. With that one, it's
doubles.
If I roll doubles,
that's right.
Then I suffer perils.
Thank you.
Being within 18.
It's not a relic you see very often. So
I think he was. So he told me he was. So like, I'll be real with you. He told me when he came to that event, he was like, I just want to try a bunch of this stuff out, because he hasn't been able to get a lot of reps in.
Yeah.
And, you know, he expected there to be a lot of Grey Knights. You know, he was making fun of me for bandwagoning, because he'd been playing Grey Knights for forever. You know, he loves his Grey Knights, so he was just trying stuff out.
So Jazz Hand reminded me here that there's a Preserver's Warlord trait that extends your auras by 3 inches, which is probably where.
Okay, because I was looking in the relics right there, and
yeah.
I was like, I cannot see it. You know.
It's interesting that you brought that up, because when I looked at this list, it kind of felt that way, that they kind of put in a little bit of everything so that they could just try it out. Like, I want to see how good a Paladin Blob really is. I want to see how good Purifiers really are. How good is a Purgation Squad now without Astral Aim, right? Like, or without the pre-nerf Astral Aim. So,
yeah. So I was gonna kind of going back to Servant of the Throne, Sigil of Exigence. One of the issues I kind of so I have mine separated, right? I've got my 3-up invul, my Servant of the Throne. I've got that on my Blades baby carrier, and then I've got the Whoop, the Sigil of Exigence, on my Sword Bearers one. And for a while, I was thinking about unifying them, and I'm still now I'm kind of on the fence about it, because I got to see Mark play with them together. Like, he put it on the one Grandmaster, and he made it the Super Grandmaster, where it's getting +1 to wound, and, you know, like against demons, it's ignoring invulns, you know, and it's the extra attacks, and like he's super cool. But He's really shreddy, but I don't know how I feel about having both of them on there. And the reason being is because when you with Whoop, like Whoop, you almost always do right away. Something's targeting me. All right, I'm picking it up and I get a free teleport, across the table. Depending on what guns have fired and where things are to fire and what charges you're afraid of and how you expect the 9 inches and moving in or into your next turn are going to look like. You a lot of the times you almost always do it right away. But like the 3-up invuln to gain ground, unless you're hiding, and then it's kind of scary. But the 3-up invuln is it's a gambler's trait, serving of the throne, in my opinion, almost. Because one Dark Lance goes through, and I'm down to 7 wounds left on a Dread Knight.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Almost bracket.
And that's a Grand Master.
Yeah.
But I don't want to burn it right away because I want to burn that 3-up invuln usually in melee. When something like Incubi are coming at me or something that's really really scary. And obviously there's sometimes when I do want to burn it for sure. It's like I can see very clearly you've got 6 AdMech chickens pointed at me and there's no other option. I'm going to be burning the 3-up invuln no matter what. But you don't want to be burning it when there's 3 wounds left. You want to be burning it when, he's closer to full. So when like there's a little stupid bolt pistol that's coming at you, you don't want to be burning it then. Obviously, since you're still saving it on 2-up. Okay. If there's, what I mean? Like if there's one small AP -3 attack,
Yeah. I like one of the Soul Reaper cannons from the new Thousand Suns Codex, which is basically a ranged power sword now. Strength 5, -3 AP, 1 damage. Yeah, I'm listening to you intently because that's how I run my Grand Master. In my own hubris, I 3D printed my own face and stuck it on my Grandmaster Dread Knight, so...
Forgive you.
I want him to stay alive because it's me, it's my face. So I do stack both. I love the Bamf though, like just... Please, shoot me. I'll just go stand over here now. You've effectively forward deployed my Grandmaster now.
And that's the beauty between the 3-up invul and the Whoop on one. Like that's the theory, and that's why the thought is that it's really good, is because you have this model that all of a sudden is really dangerous, but your opponent doesn't want to shoot in fear that they trigger the Whoop, and they don't want to charge in fear that they trigger the 3-up invul. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the theory behind it. For me, it was a little bit easier because it's like when I was playing against Mark, it's like all my Dread Knights go up. I can see it no matter where you're at. I shoot at you once, you whoop. All right, now I still shoot at you. And he burned the Whoop, but he didn't want to burn the 3-up invul. Which I understand. I empathize with that because there's a lot of games where I've played with my Blades Grandmaster and he just didn't burn the 3-up invul because I was just waiting for it, for the right moment, or I burned it when he's got 5-6 wounds left. When that's terrible.
I think that is a trap that I fall into multiple times. Is that I wait to do a play because I want it to be the most efficient play I can possibly make it. When doing the partially efficient play now is better than waiting until it's too late for you to ever get that like perfect play off, right?
It's greed.
Yeah, it's greed. Exactly. And it's like I think that's because I've been like a role-playing game player for so long, and like I want to min-max, and I always want to be like I want to be min-maxing all the time. I want to be doing the most I possibly can. And so I totally feel you where it's like I don't want to burn this and then have them be like, okay, well, I can shoot his other Dread Knight, and now this one has a 3-up, so I'll just stick my other 7 Dark Lances into that one without the, it's like, okay, well, now I wasted it. They baited it out, right? Like, and that feels bad for you, but also that was probably a good play by them, right? I don't know. We have a question in here as well for more Dread Knight questions, which is great because I love that model, and they're so good now. Are you spending a lot of CP to fall back and shoot and charge with them, or are you shunting with them? Or are you just not really using those strats at all?
So I do use shunt often enough because it means that I have 2 units that can get across the board faster between Gate of Infinity and the shunt.
Yep.
Good point. The fallback, shoot, and charge is amazing. You can't cast with it, right?
No, but
you can fall back, shoot, and charge.
Yeah.
I actually don't end up using it that often. I think the last game I used it a whole bunch was against Dark Angels. I was playing against Dark Angels at one point, and it behooved me to fall back, shoot, and charge more than just stay in combat with a bunch of perma-transhuman nonsense. So
yeah, fair enough. And then we have Clown Mode is asking, are purgation squads worth it? He says he did the math without any CP and yikes, which I assume means that they didn't pan out very well in the math.
Math is a big part of the game, but I don't know if it's as big as. I mean, I don't want to say that either. All right, so purgation squads. My problem with them is they don't have as much utility as like a strike squad does. And that's how I measure a lot of stuff, is like how many jobs can one unit accomplish, really is where I look at a lot of those better ones. And purgation squads, I like the flamers, actually, because you can dish out a bunch.
Yeah, strength 6 flamers
bad.
are gonna be good.
Yeah, it's not bad, but it's like I'd still rather just have halberds and stormbolters, personally. I get tempted by the other stuff too. I mean, I get tempted by purifiers a lot too, and I still put them on the table for other fun games, or games where I'm teaching people, or games where I'm just trying stuff out for giggles. But and that's kind of where I put purgation squads for me for now, is to just kind of get a better feel for them and run some silly reps, some of those silly games with when you're teaching people and buddies how to play, and you just want to get used to Grey Knight profiles more, and have access and know what their strats are and such.
Yeah, I was listening to a other podcast, and they did some theory crafting on like a 10-man purgation squad without even bringing any special weapons, because they have the 1 CP strat for +1 to wound, and then you can, they come down out of deep strike, they're within 12 inches, so they're gonna all fire 4 times, that's 40 shots plus 1 to wound, and you can really do some like serious damage. But that also sounds like a lot to be putting into a 10-man purgation squad that's now gonna be blasted off the board. I mean
a 10-man, that's a lot of points.
Yeah, exactly.
And you got to find a place to fit them. You got to find a place to fit 10-32 millimeter models in and hopefully someone's backline, so you can score and engage an all front point.
Right.
For at least 1 to 2 more turns, because you want to get the utility of those points out of them. And they might be charging something.
Yeah, and then they're just, well, I mean, I think they also get weapons. So in this case, they would have melee weapons and stormbolters only, so they would effectively be a really slow interceptor squad or a strike squad without OBSEC. I think, I thought you could totally take them and then not.
Oh, every weapon is equipped with Nemesis Force Bolter and Stormbolter.
Yeah, and then you can give them the special weapons if you want. And I think, actually, I've got Battlescribe up here right now. I think and the silencers don't even cost you anything.
Okay, I kind of like that. I kind of like that idea. So
you could actually drop down a big 10-man with 8 silencers in it. Which are now increased in range from Tide of Convergence, and you could spend the +1 to wound. But yeah, that's a lot. That's a hilarious amount of dice to roll. I kind of love it.
Honestly, I kind of like it with the Stormbolters. That's probably
not that's also a lot of shooting, though. And the +1 to wound, everybody's like, ha, strength 4, and then you're like, but with +1 to wound, so,
let me check that one, too, to make sure it's like anything purgation and doesn't have another prerequisite on it being a psi weapon.
I read it yesterday, and it just said Grey Knight's Purgation Squad. Yeah.
It's Purgation Squad, that's within half range. That's actually
which is what you're gonna want to use anyway, because you're gonna want rapid fire for your storm bolters anyway. So
that's awesome.
That's hilarious, yeah. I don't necessarily think it's good, but it is funny. Oh, it's 2? Oh, my bad.
2 CP.
I thought it was...
Yeah.
So our fallback and shoot and charge is 1. But
yeah, it's
but getting
awesome.
+1 to wound on storm bolters is 2.
2. Also, we have an old school transhuman.
We do have the old school trans.
I'm not gonna complain.
Transhuman.
The other big weakness I see with Grey Knights is that we have very little access to fight first, fight last mechanics, with the exception of the fight last mechanic. Yeah. One relic to make a character fight first, and then one, I think it's a vision or a gift. It's one of the two to make demons.
Yeah, it's
and it's a vision, so it's like once per battle. And it's like, okay, great.
So there is the like gyro temporal vault or whatever, which is a relic that you can give a unit within 6 inches of you fight first. There was some theories going around in the Grey Knights Discord that because this codex is actually a little old, that it was being written when fight last wasn't really a thing yet. So they were giving people fight first in these codexes, but then they started to give out fight last in the ones that were written later. So there was a thought that maybe that'll get fact, and the gyro temporal vault will give fight last, which would actually make that like an auto take. But yes, the only access to fight last we have is a upgrade, the true name shard against demons only. Which is very good against demons. If you're in a meta with a lot of demons, yeah, bring it. But otherwise, I don't see myself spending 15 points on it. It doesn't even do anything else.
Against a bunch of demons, I'd be concerned about other things.
Yeah. Joshua's asking, I thought purgation squads could only take 4 heavy weapons, even if they're a 10-man. You might be right. We're mainly talking about a 10-man brick with all storm bolters,
correct.
But I did actually say 8, so that's on me. That's my bad.
I'm honestly kind of liking the storm bolters, though, to be honest with you, on these guys.
They're cheap. They're 22 points, just like
you get to keep the melee weapon.
Yeah,
and
exactly,
which gives them so much more utility. I would totally have them in Blades of Victory.
So unfortunately, I have a meeting I have to be at in 30 minutes. I want to talk to you more about your other matchups, though. So this has been a fantastic talk. I just a little rushed at the moment, but so. Game 2, you went up against, it looks like Necrons?
Yep, Cody Bow.
Sure
another
was.
hog.
And how'd that go?
That was another Dawn of War game. He went first in that game. He went up, he moved a bunch of wraiths. Terrain did not benefit me that game in the same way. So I kind of had to almost force that game into a hammer and anvil situation. I picked Assassinate that game, which ended up sucking a lot. And like around turn 3, I was like, I need to start killing some characters. And that ended up being a tighter game than I had anticipated. Because I lost a couple baby carriers a little bit early on too. Yeah, and that's the long story short of it. I mean, the game went from this to this to this and this. And,
so everybody's just swirling all over the board.
Yep. In order for me to stay out of bad touch from wraiths, and I had to kill wraiths, and his wraiths, he played those well, and he killed a lot of my stuff. And
what the hell is a death mark? Never even heard of that. Yeah,
you're the sniper bros. You can make them out of the immortal kit.
Oh.
They come down, like, so when you bring something out of reserves, they can come down and they can shoot at you. And they can also target characters because they got sniper rifles.
Huh.
So that's that game.
Nice. Okay.
Good dude too, by the way.
Yeah.
I like Cody.
Game 3 was against Chaos Space Marines. What an iconic matchup. Not quite just straight demons, but Very cool.
So he's playing a Creations of Bile army, and so his whole idea here is it's actually a fairly creative list. I like Matt a lot too. Matt's a great dude. He plays here in the area, and he's also in my club actually, and with Frozen North, and it was kind of a creative Creations of Bile list, and his whole concept was getting buffs on toughness, strength, attacks, things like that, being able to manipulate all of that. And so he had like toughness 5 Terminators with a bunch of attacks, and like this big bomb of Raptors coming on in with 1 billion attacks too that are toughness 5. They're harder to kill, stuff like that. The only problem with that list, with me or like with him, was that all of my profiles just sync up. 'Cause it's like toughness 5, I don't care. I got halberds. They're strength 6. So kind of back to our earlier conversation about swords versus halberds.
Yeah.
Halberds again were the winners on that. And I forgot to do Purify and Ritual one turn. I was like, and then we were just like, nope, not gonna do it. And and then as soon as I did it the second turn, he's like, what the heck? He's trying to be nice.
It's
about
like
it.
6 points. Like, no. What?
I missed it. It's fine. And yeah. So that was that game. And then my last game was against Deemer. Jeremiah Pettit with his Custodes.
Yep, looks like Custodes, Shadow Keepers. 3 Telemons. Woo! Those are 280 points apiece. That's it. So this is where you charged in and like did 2 damage or whatever?
Yeah.
So how'd it go?
Rough. By the end of turn 3, I pretty much didn't have any baby carriers left.
Yeah.
I had to play the rest of that game with my strikes and interceptors as best as I could, and that was an intense game. Like he pretty much pushed all the baby carriers in the middle. I shot at him and whatnot, and I didn't, like, again, it's one of those things where it's like he's got, 3 big robots. I've got 5 big robots. His robots are a bit better than mine, but mine can smite and have powers and stuff.
Yeah. And
he's got Trajan Valoris. But it was really the strikes and interceptors that ended up getting me my win, because he still had a Telemon and like 6 Venatari at the end of that game. Like that was tight, and I didn't have much either. And it was the interceptors that got me that final rod, and that was a rough game because I had to pick, because it was another Dawn of War mission, and that one was a hold 1, hold 2, which kind of sucks. I'm not a big fan of those missions. I had the same kind of mission with Necron's Cody Bow. Yeah. And the reason I'm not a big fan of him is because with primary, it'll be like, all right, you get 10, I get 10, you get 10, I get 10. Who went second? That person gets 15. Especially when you've got 2 relatively tough armies. Like that's just kind of how that game looks. But yeah, there were a couple places in that game where it could have swung either way, and it's that way because both of us are playing with 4-up invulns, right? So, and 4-up invulns are super swingy because it's a 50-50 odd of something massive going through or not. So yeah.
Well, great. Are you gonna host anything? It sounded like in our pre-chat when you gave me a tour of your store that you host RTTs there as well. Is there one? Is there anything on the books soon?
Yeah, I've got one this weekend here, and then there's going to be another one in 2 weeks from now on a Saturday. I've been kind of booking it up to closer to 2 RTTs a month.
Wow.
So, and then
nice.
We do our Iron Hammer competitive league as well, which we've got like 30 some people in right now across the Twin Cities Metro playing in.
Nice really work, man.
Yeah, thanks.
You're really like, so are you filling a gap that wasn't like filled before when you made your store, or are you just better at it than your competitors? Like you're more active.
Obviously I'm better. So I do have the best tables. I will say that with pride. I do have the best tables in the Metro by far. I've got good terrain. I've got whiteboards. I've got score sheets. I've got every book in the game on the shelf. I've got everything. I've got chess clocks. I've got everything a player needs here. But yeah, like I told you before earlier, I used to do tournaments at this place called Level Up Games in South St. Paul, and they closed down. I used to run RTTs out of there, and I did that for quite some time. and nothing on the East Metro here in the cities like existed. So I was like, that sucks. So I'm going to set something up. And so I set something up with the intent of, I want to make this for 40K. I want to be able to run more tournaments. I want people to be able to congregate. I want people to be able to get together and put dice and models on the table and hang out together. Especially in now, like with COVID, it was.
Looks like we lost you for a
I'm
second
here.
there. We lost your video.
Okay.
It's fine. There you go. Now you're back.
Yeah. So especially with COVID, it was one of those things where people were really isolated. Young men were really isolated, and I've seen a couple suicides and heard some stuff too. And I had a guy in my unit personally. He killed himself, and like we were talking about earlier, one of the biggest things about this game is that you get that human interaction with another guy, and I think that's super important. And fraternal relationships between men is something that it isn't really often promoted in the mainstream very often, particularly with those that are authentic. So I wanted to produce a space that could allow for something like that, so that people could get together and they could, kind of do what guys do, which is hyperanalyze everything we do on a rational level, to the point of insanity at times, and be able to come up with solutions that we can interpret into our real lives, and have that accountability between other guys that so we can take care of each other, because we need that. Guys need that. And,
yeah, man. No, that's
really
something
that 40K just does.
That's deep. I liked it. Like, it's even saying that is pretty courageous. In a way, right? Like, I was talking to my wife a few weeks ago, and it's like, I remember like every compliment I ever get, because men, especially complimenting other men, is so damn rare.
We don't get them.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I remember when my like 4th grade teacher called me creative, right? Like,
yeah.
And so
sure.
that's a great, like, awesome point, right? Is that, yeah, men, not to say that we don't want women in this hobby.
No, yeah.
It is a very right.
But
it is a very
male
dominant. Yeah, absolutely.
It is, and that's just what it is right now, and that's whatever. But like I said, like that's what you're getting out of it, because like there's two really big options that are promoted in the mainstream for guys hanging out, and that's either you go and you watch a sports ball game, in which case you're watching something, which means you're not actually talking to each other, and then the other is you go to a bar and you get wasted, and in which case you're not really cognitively functioning at 100%, so you're not actually coming up with the solutions you need to for the problems in your life. Whereas with 40K, you're focused, you're thinking, you want to win, because there's a binary result between win and loss.
It's true.
And it feels bad when we lose because it hurts our pride, but we get an opportunity to learn, right?
Yeah.
And an opportunity to learn how to deal with losing in life.
Yeah. And you also get an opportunity, as men do, to cut each other down in a hopefully friendly manner.
One of the rules I have in the shop is that banter is permissible and encouraged. So
fantastic. Yeah. That's awesome, man. I really like, that's a whole another layer to a really like rotten onion that I, maybe we should have a discussion about, because nerd culture, jock culture, it's pervasive, and it infiltrates all kinds of media and hobbies. Yeah, I mean, it's
divisive.
This is a deep conversation. So, and I'd love to get into it more, but we're near 9 a.m. here, and I got to prepare for this meeting. So, thank you so much, everybody who is watching right now, and of course, Axel as well. Congratulations on your win. I hope you keep doing more cool stuff with Grey Knights, and it sounds like you've got a hell of a thing going on there with your store.
Thanks, man. I'm honored.
Are you still in the guard then?
No, I got out in March.
Okay. Well, congratulations. That's sweet,
Thanks.
sweet DD 214, buddy.
Yeah, not quite a DD 214, but yeah.
Oh, really? What is it for the guard then?
Guard, because we're on the state side, so we get a different piece of documentation. But
Okay.
yeah, same concept. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, man. And I'm gonna end the stream here, but if you want to stick around, Axel, for a bit, and thank you again,
Thank you.
everybody.